Hey, before we get into this episode, have you seen that my new book is out? It's called Stop Selling and Help Them Buy Weddings and Events. And it's a book that you helped me write because you would ask me at a conference, which of your books has what you just spoke about on stage? And if it wasn't in any of my books, I'd say it's in the next one. Well, here it is. Here's the next one. How to respond to reviews. What if you don't like doing sales? The 3 questions to ask every prospect, or they can't ask for what they don't know exists. These are just some of the chapters in there. And the beauty is you don't have to read it front to back. You can jump around to any chapter, kind of like my other book, Wit, Wisdom, and the Business of Weddings, where you can jump to any chapter because they're not necessarily connected to one another. And if you want to get free shipping on a paperback copy, go to shopalanberg.com and use the coupon code podcast. That's shopalanberg.com. Use the coupon code podcast. Get free shipping on me. Otherwise, it's on Audible. It's on Kindle. And if you go to podcast.allenberg.com, the links are all there as well. Thanks. Don't punish the masses for the ills of a few. Listen to this episode. See where I'm going with this. Welcome to another episode of the Wedding Business Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Berg. I'm a speaker, author, sales trainer, website reviewer, and I help businesses like yours sell more, profit more, and have more fun doing it. Enjoy this episode. Hi, it's Alan Berg. Welcome to another episode of the Wedding Business Solutions Podcast. This is a phrase that I've used probably quite a few times here on the podcast, and I definitely use in my speaking and in my personal life. And what it comes from is I see rules and things created by different businesses because of something, bad that happened, something that did not go well. So they create a rule around it, or they create a policy around it. And maybe it goes into your terms and conditions and things like that. And the challenge with it is you end up looking at things from the negative light. Like, we don't want this to happen again. And I agree with you. You definitely don't want a lot of things that happen to happen again if they did not go well. But the problem with it is we end up punishing everybody because somebody did something wrong, or somebody didn't listen, or maybe because we actually created the situation that made that thing go south. And now we're trying to fix it, but we're fixing it the wrong way. I'll give you a for instance. I see very often people will say, well, the couple or the client didn't do this and it was in the terms and conditions. And I'm like, well, really? Right, do you read the terms and conditions? And even if you did, and the event is a year from now, do you remember the terms and conditions? I just had on an episode, Sarah Fox, her company is 500 Words, where she talks about cutting your contract down to 500 words in real, just plain English. This is what I'm going to do. This is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to pay and when. And here you go. And then it's more than 500 words because you're going to have the details of those things. But the overarching thing with the terms can be just cut down to that. I actually just paid Sarah to redo my agreement so that it's simpler. And mine wasn't bad to begin with, but the formatting and stuff needed it. She did a wonderful job and did that for me. So are we trying to create rules to stop every possible bad thing that could happen, even though they rarely ever do? And then the things that happen more often, can we come up with a better way of doing this? For instance, if you're a venue and you don't allow outside alcohol, which is, unless you're a venue that does allow outside alcohol, most of them don't, especially if you're selling alcohol, you're not going to allow anybody to bring outside alcohol. And people do that, right? The question is, how do we avoid that? And it's by better communication, but at the right time. So a year before the wedding, and you tell them that that's fine. But remember, the guests aren't there in the conversation. The bridal party is not there in the conversation. So if your bridal party decides that before the wedding, they're going to bring in some, bottles of alcohol and have a little party beforehand, nobody told them that they can't. Now, common sense would say you shouldn't do that, but that's another story. We're not talking about common sense. But if that's the thing, and you have to let the couple know, listen, your bridal party can't do this, your guests can't do this, and you need to communicate that to them. You need to do this as you lead up to the wedding, getting close to it, not a year before, and then complain that they didn't read line 42, section B, item 3 of the contract, because that's just asking them to do something that you wouldn't do, right? So punishing the masses for the ills of a few is coming up with rules, policies, things to try to avoid every bad thing that could happen, instead of making it clearer about what are the, what is the terms of this agreement? And if there are things that you want to avoid, the question is this a once in a lifetime kind of a thing? All right. Has this happened to you once in 10 years and now all of a sudden it's a policy? And do we really want to punish the next one because of that? Because we know that the answer should always be yes. If you're a customer, that's what you want to hear. Your customers want to hear that as well. And when you say, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you become the no company. And when you become the no company, they want to do business with somebody else. So simply look at your terms and conditions. Look at the way your agreement is written. Look at what you're telling them. And is it written in a positive way, which is, here's all the great things. Here's the things you can do. And by the way, these are a few things that you can't do, right? And then can you limit those things and cut those things down that they can't do to the things that happen often that you want to avoid, as opposed to the very rare things that, we just can't we can't be avoiding every possible bad thing that could happen, other than just doing the best we can to do a great job every time. So think about those things. Go and read your agreement and say, hey, if I was the customer and I'm reading this, first of all, do I understand it? Otherwise, listen to that episode I did with Sarah Fox on contracts. Do I understand it? Is it very clear? Would it be clear to somebody who doesn't understand our industry, our category, our lingo, things like that? And then does it feel punitive? Like we're punishing people. We're like, no, 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 no. And I think we've all seen that as customers. When we see people having things like that, it's like, whoa, what bad things have happened to you? I would never do something like that. And most reasonable people wouldn't. Are we punishing the masses and making ourselves look worse at the same time, because we're looking like the no company? We're looking like the looking to punish people for things, as opposed to looking to have a great time and then letting them know clearly, like as you get closer to when you're going to perform the service, these are a few things to keep in mind. Could you have the top 5, 7, 10 things that they need to know now, a year after they signed an agreement with you, 6 months after they signed an agreement with you? Could you go back to them and say, okay, here's a reminder. Here are some of these top things you need to keep in mind. This is when you can get into the venue. This is when, right? All these things, these are the things you're going to do. And by the way, here's a few things to keep in mind. No outside alcohol by you, by your bridal party, by your guest. Please notify them of that. They will be confiscated at that time. We do have security there. This is why, insurance, whatever. And sometimes just explaining the why of it, not just the what, will make people accept it more. Right? The what, you can't do this, but they don't understand why, because they would never imagine doing that. Now, if there's a good reason, maybe we could do that. But if it's because it happened once in the last 5 years and we want to put it into the agreement, that's probably a bad reason for it being in there. Now you're punishing the masses for the ills of just a few. Go back and take a look at your stuff. I hope you don't find anything there, but if you do, you can make it better. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Wedding Business Solutions podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe to this channel and post a review on your chosen platform, Apple Podcasts or whichever one. If you have any questions about anything in this episode or any of my episodes, email me directly at alan@weddingbusinesssolutions.com or visit my website, alanberg.com. alanberg.com. If you have any suggestions for future topics or guests that you'd like to see, please again email me or visit my website. Thanks for listening.